Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, we will try to understand about the authentication methods that are available with Microsoft Azure. So let's try to understand with this simple drawing. Now, if you see here, you have the Windows Azure Active Directory, which is on a cloud, and if you added any of the machines that can be contacted, also the users can be allowed for the authentication. And also if you configure AD Connect, so your on-premises Active Directory users also can be synced and they can be logged in with on-premises user ID. That means if you have an application which is in on-premises or maybe in a cloud, you can use either as your AD user or maybe from Windows Active Directory, that is from your on-premises. Or maybe also you can grant any of the PaaS applications. Also you can contact or enable your line of business applications, or maybe third party applications. Let's say you can allow them to log in with Facebook or maybe with the Gmail or whatever the other identity providers IDs. So here two different words I used. One would be the application, other one would be the authentication. So in this lecture we will talk about authentication options that we have. And for the application, I would be talking application or with the different lecture would be covered especially for the application registration within Microsoft Azure Active Directory. In this lecture, we're going to look at choosing the right authentication method for your Azure AD solution or for your entire organization. So why is choosing the right authentication method is so important for any organization? Because that would be your first decision that you make on your journey to the cloud when you are trying to deploy your applications, for example, maybe Office 365 or cloud applications or even line of business application. You need to decide how your users will actually sign in and access those applications. And the second one is the foundation of your IT, that's a modern IT infrastructure on top of which you build on your security, identity, and access management solutions using your Azure AD. Third one is you actually choose your authentication method. It's hard to change because later point you can change or it's very hard to change it because it will likely lead to disturb your end users the way they are currently using the sign-in experience. So Azure supports many authentication options to meet the requirement of all types of organizations. Look at what are your authentication options that are available within Microsoft Azure Active Directory is. The first one is if you are purely looking for cloud only option, this is for born in cloud organizations with no on-premises infrastructure. Here you can establish your identities directly in the cloud, and Azure AD handles all of your authentication completely in the cloud. Remaining all other options, like these are the four different options required your on-premises Active Directory. That's called with the help of AD Connect you would be setting up a hybrid environment altogether. Now let's talk on them one by one. Let's take the second option, which is a password hash sync. In this case, users can actually sign into the cloud based applications using same username and the password that they use with their on-premises Active Directory. In addition to that, with this option, you can also enjoy the seamless single sign-on experience. And the third one, we can talk about pass-through authentication. It is very similar to password hash sync, but it's for organizations where their security policies are something that they would like to reuse in the cloud. When I say reuse, so they have some hard-coded policies which are in your on-premises and you want to use them in the cloud. The next two options are federated authentication. It can be either using Microsoft Active Directory Federation services or maybe a third-party compatible federation providers. In this case, Azure AD actually hands off the authentication to trusted authentication system to handle all the authentication. Federated authentication is the best fit for organizations which need advanced requirements that are not natively supported within Microsoft Azure AD. So let's take a flowchart and try to understand the decisions tree will make it easier for you to choose the right authentication method for your organization. You can use it to determine what is the best method for answering by answering few of these simple questions. So let's explore on this by splitting these decision tree. Let's take one of the company called Toys Manufacturing Company, and this company has online retailer for selling some of the toys what they manufacture. Today they use a simple emailing system over the internet with the provider, again maybe some kind of internet provider who is providing for them emails, and they wanted to use now Office 365 to collaborate by using Teams around the different projects across the globe. So can you think about it, what is the best way of choosing what kind of authentication method to be used? So if you just go back here, this is a flow chart, right? So in this flow chart, which one would be the right option? So we can think here, the first one would be do we need to integrate anything with the on-premises Active Directory? Definitely no, because they do not have any on-premises footprint, and it's just the cloud only. So the option would be the cloud only is the right option for them. They will create and manage new user accounts and the passwords within the Microsoft Azure Active Directory directly. This will allow them to use Microsoft Teams and extend their applications to other Office 365 applications or even other cloud applications that is available. So let's take another example and try to understand now. There's a company called Fabricam, and they are into manufacturing, and they have been doing business from the last 30 years. That means they do have their Active Directory, and there are close to 7,000 different workers who sign into every day within their on-premises. Now, Fabricam has decided to deploy Workday a HR cloud-based application to let factory workers handle their payroll online and also to migrate to Office 365 applications so that these factory workers can actually receive their work schedules over email. So it is important that Fabricam factory workers use the same username and the passwords that they use today within their on-premises Active Directory and sign in into Workday and Office 365 applications so that they use the same thing, so it would be more productivity. So in addition, Fabricam does not have a large IT department, so they need the simplest solution possible, which actually means at the low cost within on-premises with a low footprint so that they can easily operate. So in this situation, password hash sync is the right option for Fabricam company. Now let me explain how this can be designed. So as a first step, you need to configure Azure AD Connect as a provisioning tool, which will actually provision your on-premises user accounts to Azure AD. And also you need to configure a checkbox called password hash sync. so that the passwords never syncs or never stores in a plain text format. So what exactly the hash? Maybe you need to understand here if you're listening or if you're first time to know about hash value. So what happens is a hash is the a value that you get it from one-way mathematical function applied on a clear text password. There's no method to reverse a hash to get back the clear text password. So that's why it actually syncs only the hash values here. So that would happen uh, in a specific scheduled time. Now, an Azure AD connects to the on-premises Active Directory and reads these password hashes them 1,000 times over, and then copies them over to Azure AD, and it does this process every 2 minutes. So when the sync happens, the hash values will be stored here, only the hash value, not the passwords. That means if a user is trying to log in just from the cloud only infrastructure, that means within the cloud, just to access this user from the factory, maybe a HR application or maybe Office 365 application within the Fabricam, what happens is he will query to Azure AD for the username and the password. It would be verified instead of the actual password. It actually verifies based on the hash value, and if the hash value is matched properly, it will allow the user to access these applications. So what is the main advantages here is there is no dependency on the on-premises network. That means if without any connectivity also, at that point of time it is allowing the users to log in and access the required applications. That's a major advantage. And coming back to the other major advantages, password hash sync also provides a couple of key security benefits. First among them is there's a report called leaked credential report. The way that works is Microsoft internally they scans the internet, the entire internet, and especially the dark web for usernames and the passwords list. And if they got leaked or compromised, and if they find any of the matches to the users or the user accounts that actually available or leaked out over the dark web, it will actually alert you as an administrator. I mean, it gets alerts all the administrators through a leaked credential report, or it will automatically block users for signing, uh, maybe even allowing them to reset their password the next time they actually sign in. So this feature is only possible if you use the password hash sync option. The second feature called Smart Lockout, it actually protects from brute force password attacks within Microsoft Azure Cloud, and it prevents genuine users from being locked out of their applications. Now, you should combine password hash sync with a complementary feature called seamless single sign-on. So seamless single sign-on, it means it will allow users to automatically sign in into Azure AD if they are on their corporate devices connected on their corporate network. Seamlessly, they can access any of the cloud resources or cloud applications without any issue, without asking or without entering any of the passwords. So for that, this specific machine should be joined into Azure AD. That's one of the requirement, and also you need to enable the as we talked, you need to enable the identity sync hashes. There's a password hash sync. Then once you meet these two requirements, uh, it can access the cloud applications without actually entering any of the usernames and passwords. This makes user experience a lot better with this feature. Let's take third scenario where some of the organizations might require an authentication feature that is not supported. by Azure Active Directory. For example, signing with smart card authentication, or maybe you have your on-premises multi-factor authentication server. With that, you wanted to sign in. That might not be suitable with Azure AD. So in that situation, how you're gonna address that? So definitely you might be ending up with federation. So that's where we are going to talk about now, but just a quick note or reminder that these things might change as these are the current limitations. But since you know that Microsoft Azure is drastically changing or evolving day by day, so they might support all these features in the future within the AD Connect. But for now, it's not possible. But let's talk on that how and what are the possible things and what is a business case. So the business case is there's a company called a bank. Let's take one of the bank company, and that's a financial company. So it's a trusted financial institution that has strong regulatory requirements within that company. So how they are going to address that? So let's take one company, as I said, Woodgrove Bank. This is a national financial institution. What they are currently having is they require a strong regulatory operations for their password policies, the bank tailors, and they also require they don't log on after hours. For example, a bank teller, they don't want to work after hours. They are planning to move to Office 365 to use cloud applications and even some of the on-premises application to make them available to tailors and corporate employees. So when we look at the employees, are more employees, and they also wanted to use Office 365 and cloud applications, line of business applications, right? So in this situation, how we are going to address? So that's a business case. So let's understand how best we can do it. So the point is here, you can start from, do you need to the Active Directory to be integrated? Yes. Do you want to cloud authentication, password protection should be there? No. Or do you have an existing federation server? No. All this workflow will end up. But so clearly Wood Grove Bank cannot use the password hash sync because password policies that they are using is completely different than what Microsoft Azure provides as an date. Like we talked about, Taylor has to be logged out after their business hours and they cannot log in. So that policies are completely customized as per their financial regulations or financial institutes regulation policies now, which are not part of Azure AD. So in that situation, what happens is Azure AD as a natively it's not going to support. So by Azure AD natively going with a federation, that could solve the requirements, but they would lead up, it could lead to higher operational cost in terms of managing server certificates and network configuration. So that all to be done. So Woodgrove Bank should actually use the modern cloud first approach of pass-through authentication. That's the answer for that. So let's have a look on it, how that looks like. So this is called, modern cloud first approach of pass-through authentication. So let me explain on how pass-through authentication actually works. Pass-through authentication is also set up using Azure AD Connect. Uh, so almost all these scenarios what we have discussed so far, except the cloud only, we need to have Azure AD Connect. That's a solution. With the help of Azure AD Connect, in the past we configured password hash sync, but instead of synchronizing password hash this time, uh, within the Azure AD, you start by installing two more new configurations or two more authentication agents on premises, so that you need to, and I mean you would be ending up with two or more servers just for the higher availability purpose, but minimum is 2 servers to be configured. Maybe you can configure on your domain controllers also, but these are going to be set it up in your on premises for higher availability purpose. So when I use these agents actually make persistent outbound connections to Azure AD to listen for authentication requests. When a user sign into Azure AD and they supply their usernames and passwords, Azure AD encrypts the password using public key, and the username and encrypted password is placed on a queue to the Azure cloud. So one of the agent here decrypts the password field using its private key and test the username and the password against on-premises Active Directory here. Now the result of this authentication should be successful, or maybe a failed a password, or maybe expired password, or user is logged out for some reason. So these are the output. You may not get it out, and that information will be relayed back to Azure AD via agent. If this authentication is successful, then the user is actually access the application here. Now the pass-through authentication also supports smart lockout, which we talked about, also leaked credential report that we talked. So now let's have a look on federation configurations or federation designs. So federation is recommended for authentication method for organizations that have advanced features not currently supported within Microsoft Azure AD, including multi-site low latency authentication infrastructure. Federation requires a bit more setup. First, you need to have at least 2 federation servers in your internal network to accept authentication requests. Uh, at least the one or more than one, so that you can configure the high availability. The next thing is at least you need to have 2 more proxy servers, federation proxy we call it, and these are to be set it up into the perimeter network or on your DMZ network. These will accept requests from internet, and then it will relay to federation servers which are within our internal ADFS servers. And when a user signs in Azure AD, Azure AD will hand off this authentication request to the trusted federation system that you have configured. This basic topology supports other scenarios such as on-premises MFA server or smart card authentication. Federation authentication is not just Microsoft ADFS, but also for compatible other trusted third-party providers also. To conclude this lecture, I wanted you to consider top recommendations. Always enable password hash sync. If you use password hash sync and use that for your sign in into, you don't need to worry about high availability options. It will be on Microsoft headache. If anything goes wrong with your on-premises services, your authentication will continue to work. But if you choose pass-through authentication, or which is this method, pass-through authentication method, or maybe a federation method, you can still use the password hash sync because you can use that as the backup authentication method. For example, if you configure your on-premises services goes down, you can manually fail over to password hash sync and still allow users to use or to log in into your cloud applications to grant them as access. In enabling password hash sync also gives you identity protection through uh, for the leak credential reports. So that's the one other advantage if you go with the uh, password hash sync. I hope this is useful for you. Thank you for watching this. I'll catch you in the next lecture.